Will you pray with me? Holy One, may the words of my lips and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. We celebrated Reformation Sunday a few Sundays ago, where we gave thanks for all the work that the Reformers did in creating the church that we are now a part of. Among the things that they insisted were true of the faith was the idea of, in Latin they called it sola scriptura, only the Bible, as a rule of practice and faith. And they didn't just want to have only the Bible as a rule of practice and faith. They felt really strongly that there was just one way to read the Bible, and that's to look for the plain sense of the text. You read the story, and whatever it seems to say on the surface is probably the right thing. And they were reacting against excesses of the church that they were part of originally, what they understood to be excesses. But I regret this insistence on the plain truth, the literal truth of the Bible, because their ancestors that they were reacting against had these minds, these incredible minds that insisted that every story was deep and wide, and that every text had layer upon layer upon layer of meaning. And sometimes the meanings that they pulled out of those texts were pretty strange. There is no doubting that. But they insisted that every text had at least 4 layers. Many had more than that. But they said that every story you had what they called the literal sense. That's what John Calvin wanted you to stick with and nothing else, what it seemed to be about on the surface. And then below that was the allegorical sense, where every character and everything stood for another thing that was designed to teach you a lesson about faith. And beneath that was a moral meaning that was not just about faith, but about how you ought to act in daily life. And beneath that was what they called the anagogical sense, or eschatological sense, which is looking ahead to the future, what this text is predicting about what the end of the world will be like, or the next world will be like, how this is all going to be transformed into something new. They had a rhyme in Latin that they used to remind themselves of all the meanings they were supposed to be looking for. In English, it goes something like this: the literal teaches what God and our ancestors did. The allegory is where our faith and belief is hid. The moral gives us the rule of daily life. The anagogy shows us where we end our strife. And this story, the story of the Good Samaritan that you all have heard before, I think, that you've seen, it's plastered across hospitals and on the fund that we use here, Good Samaritan, you know that term, right? You've heard of that. There are laws named after it. This story was one of their favorite allegories. They would go on and on for days about the Good Samaritan because it just seemed to fit so well into their understanding of the world and of Jesus Christ. And so here's how the allegory worked for them. So there's a person, a guy, right? And he's going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And this idea of going down was really important for them. And so they said, Jerusalem, that's paradise, where we all started, the paradise that Milton said we lost, right? And Jericho is the world, and the road is not to Jericho is the world. And the guy that's going down, they said, that's Adam, which is another way of saying that's you. You're the one that's walking down that road from paradise to the world. And the robbers, those are the forces that beset you as you move through your life. Whatever they might be, the powers and potentates that exert force over you, whether you like it or not. The friend that you thought you could trust, but found out the hard way that you couldn't trust. The substance you thought was safe that turned out not to be. The sickness that took your spouse down. The fear that you live with every day. These are the things that as you're walking along the road, maybe running, maybe you're good at traveling this road, you're running hard and well, and your lungs are pumping, and then suddenly there's a rock in the road or a robber on the side, and you find yourself in the ditch on your knees, this close to death. And then a Samaritan that comes along, well, that's Jesus. He's the one that finds you there in the ditch, they said, and picks you up and dusts you off when you are this close to death, brings you back and puts you on his own beast, on his own horse, on his own donkey, and that was understood to be Christ's own body. It was his body that you rode to safety, they said. And you get to the inn there, and the inn is the church that turns no one away, even those who can't pay, even those that are filthy and bloody and this close to death, that takes anyone in who needs it. And when you get to the church, Jesus anoints you with oil and wine, which is another way of saying you are baptized. And enter into the church, and there's an innkeeper there who are the leaders of the church. And that could be the clergy, but it might just as well be Joe or the choir or the trustees or Kathy, all those who run that place, who take responsibility for it. That's the innkeeper. And Jesus lays you out there, they said, and starts to heal you. But he doesn't do it all the way. He entrusts you to the church. He leaves you in the inn and says, I will be back soon. Here are riches, innkeeper, for you to use to run this place and to heal this person. And when I get back, we will see what we will see, and I will pay you back everything that you have spent on behalf of the broken and the lost and the helpless. And I cannot imagine why the reformers would want to get rid of that reading of this story. Is it not gorgeous? Is it not what we have been about here for so long? Have not so many of us stumbled through that door, broken and in need? Not just the ones who sit here, but the ones who come to our NA groups and our support groups, the ones who come to concerts and events, the ones who are almost dragged here against their will to weddings and funerals. Have not so many people been brought here and found rest and healing and balm and just a moment to breathe, safe from the world? And the robbers aren't the only ones on the road, right? There are at least two people that passed the man by before Jesus came to pick him up, they said. In the story in the text it said the Levite and the priest, and those are the ones that you thought you could trust, that you could put your faith in to save you when you needed it. The opioids the doctor prescribed that went wrong on you. The food you thought you could eat until the pain went away. The person you thought would save you, the vitamins you used to pop, your incessant jogging around the lake to try to outrun death. Whatever it is that you thought would save you from whatever it is that besets you, that's what those two are. But that innkeeper and that inn that sits there waiting for the master to come back one day, that is where the healing is found. Jesus starts the healing, they said, but then the rest of the work takes place at the hands, the gentle hands of that innkeeper. And into that innkeeper's hands is given not just the power to heal, but the responsibility to keep up the inn. Jesus poured riches into his hands, those 2 denarii, but that's not enough for the other guests. It might be enough for just the one guy that he brought, but there are so many others in need, so much more that needs to be done to keep that place running, and you can see where this is going. That's what Stewardship Sunday is about. Those riches were given at the beginning, but they are not enough to last until he gets back. He promises to repay all that you pour out of yourself on behalf of the inn. And I trust he will, but we don't really know, and that's not the point, is it? The inn itself is the point. The breathing that you do in this place that you can't do anywhere else, that sigh of relief, that sense of safety, the balm that you have found nowhere else. That is the point. And the story doesn't say this, but since we're going allegorical, we can say anything we want. I just wonder about the man that was dragged there on the back of that donkey. Did the Samaritan come back before he was healed? Or did he get better there in the inn? And did he stand up one day and look around and realize that the road was no place for him to live? Did he stand up and look around and see all the others in need? Did he stand up and look around and realize what he had been given? Did he stand up and look around and see that there was work to be done right in the place where he had found himself? And did he pick up a broom or a bowl of water and a towel? Did he pick up a chopping knife? Did he go to work? And when next someone came along with a bloodied and broken person on a donkey, was he the one that opened the door and said, "Come in"? So may it be. Amen.